Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video, and for more bedtime stories, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I used to think nothing genuinely bad ever happened in Willow Creek. It's a quiet suburban town outside Albany. Lots of cul-de-sacs, porch lights, trimmed lawns, and people who wave even if they don't know you. My mom used to joke that crime here was so rare the police probably alphabetized their paperwork just to stay busy. Back then, I believed her. I was a sophomore at Redmond State University, living in Pine Brook Hall, the cheap dorm with thin walls and permanently dusty carpets. My parents were proud I'd picked a school close to home. 30 minutes wasn't far, but it still felt like independence, like I was just far enough away to breathe a little. I'd never been the type to party or wander campus late at night, but that changed after I transferred floors halfway through sophomore year. That was when I met Rylan. Rylan was the kind of guy you only meet once in college. Open door policy, music always playing, never seemed to sleep. He lived 2 doors down from me and had this rare ability to make everyone feel like they belonged. I wasn't a social butterfly, but he dragged me out of my room more times than I can count. He's the reason I stayed out so late the night everything happened. A month before the campus incident, my dad had a minor heart scare. Nothing life-threatening, but enough for the family to drown in anxiety for weeks. I'd been commuting home constantly, missing classes, skipping social stuff. The night of the Willow Creek Spring Jam was the first time I felt remotely normal again. It wasn't a huge event, just food trucks, some local bands, carnival lights set up behind the athletic fields, but it felt good to exist somewhere other than a hospital or my dorm room. I stayed until past 1:30 a.m. with Rylan and his friends, who all lived off campus and didn't mind walking home in a group. They offered to walk with me, but Pine Brook Hall was on the opposite side of campus and they'd already been drinking. "No, seriously, I'm good," I told them. "It's Redmond. Nothing happens here." Rylan raised an eyebrow. "You sure? You look tired. And you always get paranoid when you're tired." "Yeah," I laughed, "but only when I'm alone. The campus is still awake. I'll be fine." He pulled me in for one of his dramatic hugs. "Text me when you're inside, dude. I'm not trying to have your ghost haunt me because I let you walk solo." "I'll text," I promised. I didn't know then how stupidly lucky I was that he said those words. I'd replay them hundreds of times later. The walk back. The thing about Redmond State, it feels like suburbia wearing a thin college mask. At 2 a.m., it almost feels like a movie set, quiet, too still, the kind of silence that makes you weirdly aware of your own breathing. I walked down Hawthorne Path, the long walkway between the library and the student center. The campus lamps flickered the way they always did when the maintenance crew didn't replace the bulbs on time. My phone buzzed. "Rylan, don't forget, text, or I swear to God I'll bang on your door at 4 a.m. I typed back, "I'm walking past the quad. Chill." He sent back a single thumbs-up emoji. I kept walking. When I reached Pine Brook Hall, there were no other students around, which was a little unusual for a festival weekend, but not alarming enough to scare me. The sky had that dull orange glow from the town lights, and the building's glass doors reflected me. Hoodie, backpack, tired eyes. I swiped in and stepped inside. And that's when everything started. The ground floor lounge of Pine Brook Hall is small, just 2 old couches, a vending machine, and a busted TV no one uses. Usually someone is sitting there eating ramen or arguing on FaceTime, but at 2:30 a.m., it was empty. Or so I thought. I walked toward the stairwell, passing the lounge entrance on my right. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone sitting on the far couch. At first, I assumed it was just another student, until my brain processed what I was actually seeing. The person wasn't just wearing a hoodie, they were wearing a black ski mask, full face, no holes except for the eyes and mouth. They were sitting perfectly still, hands in their lap, head tilted slightly downward, staring straight at me. I stopped walking, my body freezing like it had been dunked in ice water. My first thought wasn't even logical, it was literally, is this a prank? Because nothing else made sense. The figure didn't move, didn't shift, didn't adjust. Just stared. I whispered to myself, "What the hell?" As soon as I did, the masked person stood up. Not slowly, not casually. They sprang to their feet, like a switch had been flipped. Fight, flight, or freeze. My body chose flight. I sprinted toward the hallway bathroom and dove inside, locking the door behind me. My hands shook on the metal lock. My breathing was embarrassingly loud, panicky and shallow. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Too much silence. 5 minutes felt like an hour. I checked my phone. 2:34 a.m. I typed a message to Rylan but didn't send it. I didn't want him to freak out or walk across campus drunk. I stood still for what felt like forever. Finally, I unlocked the door slowly, heart pounding as I cracked it open. The hallway was empty. No masked guy, no footsteps, no sound. Just the hum of fluorescent lights. I stepped out. I tried to force myself to breathe normally as I headed toward the side exit, the one closest to the parking lot. I figured I'd just go outside and walk around the building to the front entrance of my floor. But as soon as I reached the end of the hallway and saw the lounge again, my stomach dropped. He was still there, still sitting in the exact same place, still masked. Except now, something new was beside him. A bike leaning against the wall, and the back exit door had a chair jammed under the handle, like someone had purposely wedged it there. My skin prickled, my mouth went dry. I reached for my pepper spray without thinking. I didn't raise it, just held it up where he could see it. His eyes, barely visible through the mask, shifted to the spray. He didn't flinch. He didn't stand. He didn't speak. He just watched me. Calm, patient, like I was the one intruding on him. I swallowed hard and walked past, keeping a solid distance without ever taking my eyes off him. I didn't run. I didn't want to provoke anything, but every step felt like walking a tightrope. When I opened the exit door on the other side of the building, I exhaled shakily. The cool air felt like a lifeline. I was halfway across the parking lot when I heard it, the crunch of bike tires on pavement, then another. Then another. I turned. 3 masked riders glided toward me, all on bikes, all wearing the same black ski masks. One of them had what looked like a gun in his hand. Maybe real, maybe airsoft, maybe fake. I wasn't close enough to tell, and I sure as hell wasn't going to ask. "Yo, where you headed?" one of them called out, making his voice goofy like he was mocking me. "Why you walking so fast?" Another laughed. I kept moving, trying not to acknowledge them. They circled me like vultures, close enough for me to hear their uneven breath through the masks, but not close enough to grab me. "Man, you're scared as hell," one said with a chuckle. "Relax, we're just having fun." Fun. Right. My hands shook as I dialed my friend Luke, who lived in Magnolia Hall. Please pick up," I whispered. He answered on the second ring. "Yo? Come outside," I said immediately. "Right now." "Dude, what happened? You good?" I just come outside. Please." My voice cracked. The bikers heard it and laughed harder. When I rounded the corner toward Magnolia Hall, Luke was already jogging toward me in sweatpants and no shoes. "What the?" he started, his eyes widening as he saw the masked riders. They stopped at the edge of the sidewalk, watching us. One lifted his hand, holding the gun-shaped object, and tapped it against his handlebars twice. A warning. Or a message. I don't know. They turned and rode away into the dark, disappearing behind the dining hall. The next day, I barely slept. When I woke up, I finally told my mom everything. She didn't even hesitate. She filed a police report before I finished my coffee. Campus police took it seriously. Turns out I wasn't the only one. All day, people posted online about masked riders roaming campus the night before, approaching students, banging on dorm doors, following people, flashing weapons. The rumor mill exploded, locals doing a prank, high schoolers from the next town over, former students banned from campus, a gang initiation, something worse. No one ever confirmed anything. But the scariest detail? Someone reported seeing 5 masked individuals sitting inside Pinebrook Hall around 1 a.m., long before I walked in, meaning they'd somehow gotten inside the dorm without anyone noticing, meaning they were in the place I lived, wandering the halls freely. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep without checking the corners of the lounge. Every hallway creak made my stomach twist. Every bike I saw made me tense. My friends joked that I'd suddenly become the most punctual walker on campus, but they didn't know the truth. I'd never felt fear like that before. Not when my dad went to the hospital, not during finals, not ever. And to this day, I still don't know why they didn't hurt me, why they just watched, followed, waited, like the fear itself was their goal. And honestly, that's almost worse. I grew up thinking the suburbs were the safest place on earth. Not perfect, just predictable. Same mail truck every afternoon. Same neighbor mowing his lawn at 7 a.m. on Saturdays. Same neighborhood Facebook group arguing about trash cans left out too long. It was the kind of place where nothing unexpected ever happened, and honestly, I liked it that way. By 17, I was the quiet kid on the block. Polite, responsible, the one moms trusted to water their plants when they went on vacation. My parents used to joke that I was born 40 years old with the personality of someone who paid taxes early. But routines create blind spots too. Stability makes you arrogant. You start believing danger has boundaries. City blocks, bad neighborhoods, motel parking lots, not your own backyard. I learned how wrong that was during one summer weekend I'll never forget. My parents never traveled. Ever. They were the stay home, grill on Sundays, fall asleep to HGTV type. My mom worried about everything outside our zip code, and my dad couldn't sit still long enough to take a vacation. So when they told me they were going to a couple's retreat 3 hours away, I thought they were joking. My mom even hugged me and said, "Don't burn the house down, sweetheart, we trust you." That sentence meant more than she realized. They trusted me, and I was proud of that. But I was also 17, which meant I immediately texted my girlfriend at the time, Leora, who had this chaotic, wild energy that always clashed with my calm, responsible nature. She wasn't toxic, but she was unpredictable. The type of girl who dared me to live a little even when I didn't want to. We didn't work out for a lot of reasons that became obvious later. But that weekend it felt like I was finally doing something spontaneous for once in my life. "Weekend at your place?" she texted with a winky emoji. "You already know," I wrote back. She was at my house within an hour. We lived in a quiet cul-de-sac outside Brookfall, a small American suburb where every house felt copy-pasted from the same blueprint. White siding, 2-car garages, trimmed hedges, and backyards separated by fences people pretended not to look over. Our house wasn't huge, but it had one feature everyone commented on: the heated pool in the backyard. My parents installed it instead of going on vacations. Their logic was, we'll bring the vacation home. Fine by me. By night, the pool lights made the water glow neon blue, casting a soft reflection on the massive living room windows. If you stood in the yard, the house looked like a dollhouse lit from within, bright rooms framed against the darkness. I had always found that comforting. But later, that same glow made the scariest moment of my life impossible to deny. Leora arrived wearing ripped shorts, a tank top, and her usual smug grin. "You realize this is like a once-in-a-lifetime moment, right?" she said, dropping her bag by the stairs. "Don't hype it," I laughed. "We're just hanging out." She raised an eyebrow. "In a house where your parents aren't? On a summer night? With a heated pool? Babe, use your imagination." That mischievous spark in her eyes made my stomach flip. She was trouble wrapped in confidence, and even though we argued a lot, she made life feel cinematic. We ordered food, watched a movie, joked around. Normal stuff. No weird feelings, no creepy vibes, no sense that the next 12 hours would change everything I believed about safety. Around midnight, I walked into the backyard to dump some trash and saw Leora already standing by the pool, illuminated by the blue glow. "You know what we should do?" she called out. I didn't even need her to say it. "No," I groaned. "Yes," she smirked. "Skinny dip? Come on, no one's awake. It's pitch dark and this might literally never happen again. My neighbors will see. So? They'll think you're living your best life?" "Leora, oh, relax. Live a little. You act like a 70-year-old man in a 17-year-old's body." She wasn't wrong. I was the opposite of reckless, but her laughter was contagious, and it hit me that this was one of those teenage memories people talk about decades later. So, against every responsible bone in my body, I said, "Fine. But if Mrs. Helper next door calls the cops, I'm blaming you." "Deal," she grinned, already pulling off her shirt. Minutes later, we were in the warm blue water, laughing and splashing, whispering jokes only we found funny. It felt surreal, like a movie scene I'd never have the guts to create on my own. For a moment, everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. We floated on our backs, staring up at the night sky. I remember thinking how loud the crickets were and how quiet the street felt. Too quiet. I turned my head to look at the house through the giant living room windows, and my heart stopped. Inside the window, on the far wall behind the couch, I saw a shadow. Not the shadow of furniture, not from the TV, it was off. Not from us or anything moving outside. This shadow moved like a person. It walked slowly, then disappeared behind the doorway leading deeper into the house. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. My mind didn't even process fear at first, just confusion. Leora noticed my face. "What?" "Get out of the pool," I whispered. Her smile dropped instantly. "Why?" "Just trust me." She didn't argue. That alone scared me more. She always argued. We got out quietly. I handed her a towel and whispered, "Go to the pool house. Turn off the light. Stay quiet. Don't come out until I say." Her eyes widened. "Is someone inside?" "I think so." "Oh my God. Don't panic. Just go." She tiptoed to the pool house without another word, closing the door behind her. I heard the faint click of the light turning off, and I was alone. I stepped in through the back door, still dripping water on the kitchen tile. The house felt different. Not empty. Watched. I grabbed the biggest knife from the cutting board. My breathing sounded too loud in the quiet. I kept the kitchen light off and walked into the dining room. That's when I saw the first sign. A dining chair slightly pulled back from the table. I hadn't touched it. Neither had Leora. I moved deeper in. The hum of the refrigerator felt deafening. Shadows stretched across the hardwood floor in ways I'd never noticed before. The air was heavy, humid with the contrast between the cool AC inside and my wet skin. Then I saw another detail. A picture frame on the wall hung crooked. Not dramatically, just a centimeter off. The kind of off that was intentional. My stomach nodded. "Hello?" I said, immediately hating myself for speaking. Great. Real smart. Warn the intruder. No answer. No footsteps. Just silence. I checked the downstairs bathroom. Empty. The laundry room. Empty. Guest room. Empty. But something was wrong. Nothing upstairs was disturbed. The intruder had stayed on the main floor, but hadn't broken anything, stolen anything obvious, or rushed out when I entered. Who lingers in someone's home like that? Who stands in the living room just long enough to be seen? I eventually called the police, not because I was scared to fight someone, but because the situation didn't make sense. Burglars are messy, rushed, chaotic. This felt deliberate. 2 officers arrived, Officer Kellen and Officer Hoyt. They did a full sweep. Doors were locked, windows secured, no footprints outside. No signs of forced entry. "Could have been a reflection," Hoyt said with a shrug. "It wasn't," I insisted. Maybe whoever it was took off before you came inside, Kellen offered. How? Nothing's disturbed. And where would they go? The officers exchanged a look, the kind cops give when they don't want to say you're imagining things. After 30 minutes, they left, wishing us a good night, as if that were possible. Leora and I stayed in my bedroom, door locked, dresser pushed in front. She was pale, shaky, so unlike her usual bold personality. "You really saw someone," she whispered. "Yes. You think they're still here?" "I don't know. Babe, this is freaking me out." "I know. I'm sorry." Around 4 a.m., I woke up to a sound that made every hair on my body stand straight up. Floorboards creaking, not settling, not the house shifting, actual deliberate weight on wood, above us. Someone was walking upstairs. I shot upright, heart hammering against my ribs. Leora grabbed my arm. "What was that?" "Stay here," I whispered. "Please don't. I'll be right back. Lock the door behind me." I grabbed the knife from the nightstand and stepped into the hallway. The creaking stopped. A few seconds of dead silence. Then, soft, careful footsteps moving toward the staircase. I rushed toward the sound, knife gripped tight, adrenaline burning through me. By the time I reached the front hallway, the front door was wide open, letting in a cold gust of early morning air. Whoever had been inside had slipped out moments before I reached the door. I didn't chase. I didn't call the cops. I just shut the door, locked it, and walked back upstairs, shaking so hard the knife rattled in my hand. When daylight came, reality hit deeper. All of our kitchen knives were gone. Every single one. Not wallets, not credit cards, not TVs or consoles, just knives, and a few strange small items. Cash from a drawer, a watch from the laundry room, a portable charger, a small Bluetooth speaker. Random, personal, like someone wanted souvenirs. Leora sat at the table, trembling. "I want to go home," she said quietly. "I'll drive you." No offense, but I just want my mom." She left within the hour. Our relationship didn't last much longer. My parents returned that evening, shocked, concerned, surprisingly supportive. My mom hugged me tightly, whispering, "You did everything right. You're safe. That's what matters." But I didn't feel safe. Not then. Not for years. Maybe not even now. I replayed that night for months, every detail, every sound, every object out of place. Here's what scared me most. The police searched the entire house, every closet, every crawl space, every room, while whoever was inside stayed hidden. They didn't leave. They waited. And they moved again hours later. Upstairs. Meaning, they had to be inside during the police search, hiding somewhere we never found. People asked me later, where could they have been hiding? Attic, crawl space, inside a cabinet, behind furniture? I don't know. But someone was inside my home while I slept, while the cops searched, while we whispered in fear, watching, listening, waiting for the perfect moment to leave. People also ask what the message was with the missing knives. I used to think it meant the intruder was violent. Now I think it meant something worse. They wanted me to know they were never caught, that they were close, that they could come back. And honestly, I think they wanted me to wonder if they ever did, because sometimes late at night when the house is quiet and the lights outside reflect through the windows just right, I swear I see a shadow shift somewhere in the corner, exactly like that night, exactly where it all began. I never thought a single summer could tell me everything I needed to know about a person. But looking back now, the signs were always there. Quiet, harmless little red flags that I ignored because I told myself they weren't real problems. I was 20 at the time, old enough to think I understood people but way too young to realize how blind I was. Her name was Lorelei Hartman, and we'd been dating for about 9 months when this happened. She lived in a picture-perfect suburban neighborhood, one of those places with tree-lined streets, spotless sidewalks, kids on bikes, and houses that all looked like they were ripped straight out of a real estate brochure. Her family had money, not billionaire rich, but definitely the kind of money that makes life easier. Her dad was a commercial architect who traveled constantly, and her mom ran some boutique interior design business that catered to ridiculously upscale clients. They weren't bad people, just absent, emotionally unavailable in a way that didn't look obvious until you were close enough to notice how hollow their dinner conversations were. Lorelei loved them, but in a strange, transactional way, like she was constantly interviewing for a position she already had. And then there was me, broke college student, working part-time at an auto shop and delivering pizzas on the weekends. I wasn't dating her for the money. I genuinely liked her, but I'd be lying if I said her world didn't overwhelm me. Everything felt so manicured, controlled. The summer before everything went sideways, Lorelei took a job as a counselor at a kids' day camp in the next town over. It was a 23-minute drive from her place. I know because she made that drive every morning at 7:15 a.m. and bragged about beating traffic like a boss every single time. I never understood why she liked that job so much. The pay was trash, the kids were wild. But for some reason, she genuinely loved it. Maybe it was the attention. Maybe it was being around people who needed her. Maybe it was just the opposite of her cold household. Whatever it was, she threw herself into it. Toward the end of July, the counselors started planning a send-off party. Most of them were college kids, a couple were older, but everyone seemed excited. The only obvious place big enough to host it? Lorelei's house. Her parents gave permission through text, literally a 3-word response from her dad. Don't break anything. Pretty on brand for them. I got there around 7:45 p.m. after stopping to pick up ice cups and way too much junk food for people who were already planning to drink their calories for the night. Cars were already lined along the street. Music thumped from inside the house, bass vibrating through perfect landscaping and a spotless stone walkway. Lorelei answered the door, wearing an oversized band tee and jean shorts, her hair tied up into a messy bun that she claimed just happened, even though I'd seen her spend 20 minutes perfecting it earlier that day. "Hey," she said with a grin, pulling me in for a quick kiss. "You made it." "Traffic," I said. She smirked. "Rookie." Inside, the place was already packed. People were dancing in the living room, some were in the kitchen pouring drinks, others were sprawled across couches in corners laughing way too loudly. That's when I saw him. Trenton. I didn't like him from the jump. He was tall, loud, the type of guy who shook your hand like he was trying to break it. He wasn't even that attractive, just aggressively confident. The kind of guy who calls everyone brother and touches your shoulder way too much when he talks. And he was glued to Lorelei, laughing close, standing closer, leaning in every 30 seconds like he wanted her to smell his cologne. I approached them casually, pretending I wasn't annoyed. "Hey," I said, sliding an arm around her waist. "What's up?" She smiled. "Oh, this is Trenton, one of the counselors." He extended a hand. "What's good, man?" "Not much," I said, shaking his hand just enough to not look like a jerk. He didn't move away, just stood there, still grinning at Lorelei like I wasn't even physically touching her. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I played it cool, acted friendly, and eventually ended up offering him drinks. Part of it was petty. Part of it was my own dumb insecurity. But also, I wanted him to crash and burn. And he did. The guy drank like it was a competition he signed up for without reading the terms and conditions. Within an hour, he was slurring words. By 11, he was stumbling. By midnight, face down on the couch in the den, snoring like a chainsaw. Yeah, maybe I was proud of that. Maybe too proud. Lorelei noticed. "You did that on purpose," she said, arms crossed. "What?" "No," I muttered. "Don't lie to me." "Okay, fine," I said. "Maybe I nudged it along." She rolled her eyes but didn't push it. That was the thing about her. She never got angry. She just detached, like flipping a switch. I hated when she did that. The house got louder as the night wore on. At some point, I stepped outside to breathe. The air was cooler, quieter, and the noise inside was starting to give me a headache. I leaned against my car, staring at the sky, mind wandering to whether I should have just gone home and avoided all the weird feelings churning in my gut. That's when I saw him. A man standing at the far end of the driveway, not moving, not talking, just watching. He looked like someone who had been caught between deciding to walk toward the house or away from it and chose neither. I called out, trying to sound casual. "Hey, you good there, man?" He didn't respond. He took a few slow steps toward me, stopping underneath the street lamp. The shadows made it hard to see his face, but I could tell he was older than most people at the party, maybe mid-50s, unshaven, stiff posture. After a long moment, he finally spoke. "Are your parents home?" The question hit me wrong. The tone was too calm, too deliberate, like he already knew the answer. I froze, then lied instinctively. "Yeah," I said. "They're inside." He nodded once, then said both of Lorelei's parents' names, not guesses, not maybes, full names, pronounced correctly. My stomach dropped. He didn't say anything else, just turned and walked down the street until the dark swallowed him. I should have told someone right then. I should have locked the doors, but I didn't, because I told myself I was overreacting, because I didn't want to be that guy. About half an hour later, while I was downstairs playing ping pong with some of the quieter kids from the camp, I heard the front doorbell. Nobody was supposed to be using the front door. Lorelei told everyone to come through the back. The front door was practically decorative. Nobody used it unless they were a salesman or delivering a package. That's when a thought hit me. A cold, sharp thought. The guy from the driveway. I excused myself and went upstairs. The entire party was still going, but a lot of people were beyond drunk. Lorelei was passed out on her bed, face smashed into a pillow, totally unaware of anything happening around her. When I reached the foyer, I found Talia, one of the counselors, standing there, wobbling like a newborn deer. I asked, "Who rang the doorbell?" She blinked like the question personally offended her. "Some old dude," she slurred. "Said he's like, friend of the family. Had to return something." "You let him in?" She shrugged. "He said he knew her mom. I don't know." Then she wandered off, probably to go vomit or flirt with someone. My heart was pounding now. I ran up the stairs to Lorelei's parents' bedroom, and the moment I opened the door, I felt my entire chest cave in. Drawers open, jewelry everywhere, closet ransacked, boxes overturned. He robbed them. He was still in the house. I heard something behind me, just a small shift in the mirror on the back of the door. I turned, too slow. The man tackled me, slamming me onto the carpet. The air shot out of my lungs. My vision blurred. He clawed at my shirt like he wanted something, or wanted to rip it off, or grab something underneath it. I didn't know. Panic took over. I shoved him off, not out of strength, but terror. He sprinted across the room, vaulted out one of the open windows onto the lower roof, and disappeared into the darkness. I didn't chase him. I physically couldn't. I stumbled downstairs, gripping the railing. People were still laughing, drinking, dancing, completely oblivious to the fact someone had broken into the house and attacked me. I didn't want to confront everybody. I didn't want to kick out 100 drunk kids, so I did the only thing I could. I called the police, not even to report the break-in, just to get them to clear the house. They showed up fast, small town, bored officers, big house. They recognized the address immediately. Within minutes, they were herding everyone out, making jokes, giving people rides home, making sure nobody drove drunk. Trenton woke up when I shook his shoulder. "Bro, what?" he mumbled. "You gotta go," I said. He puked on the floor before stumbling outside. The cops left around 2:30 a.m. I sat alone in the living room afterward, covered in carpet burns and adrenaline shakes. I didn't even tell Lorelei what happened. She was still asleep, still clueless. The next morning, she found her parents' bedroom destroyed. "What the hell happened?" she asked. I told her everything. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She didn't even say sorry. She just sighed and said, "Well, that sucks." Her parents were furious, mostly at her, but they didn't file a police report. No cameras, no serial numbers for the jewelry, no real evidence. They didn't think it was worth it. I tried to make sense of it for weeks. How did the guy know their names? Why that night? Was he watching the house? Did he know the parents were gone? Did someone tip him off? And why did he ask if my parents were home? I'll never know. But the thing I still think about most isn't him. It's her. Her emptiness. Her indifference. Her complete lack of fear or care. That night showed me a version of Lorelei I never wanted to see. And once you see someone clearly, you can't unsee it. We broke up 3 months later, and I've never stepped foot in that neighborhood again. I always thought my life was too boring to attract the attention of a stranger. Back in the summer of 2016, I was living in a quiet little suburb outside Ashworth, Georgia, a place where the loudest thing at night was usually somebody's AC kicking on. I'd just turned 23 and was working as a research assistant at a small community college that pretended to be fancier than it was. My job was routine, my schedule predictable, my days shaped by familiarity to the point that even the mailman knew exactly when I'd open the door. Predictability, I learned, can be dangerous. I lived with my roommate, Jared Lovell, in a tiny one-story rental with beige siding and a porch swing that always leaned slightly to the right because we never bothered to fix it. The street we lived on, Birchview Lane, was one of those sleepy roads lined with matching houses and overly friendly neighbors who waved even if they didn't remember your name. Nothing ever really happened there. At least that's what I thought. Growing up, my dad always drilled one thing into me. Routine makes you predictable. Predictable makes you vulnerable. He was ex-Air Force, the kind of guy who double-checked locked doors before bed and insisted I carry a whistle on my keychain. To him, safety was never something to assume. But I wasn't him. I wasn't cautious like that. By 2016, I'd become the exact opposite. Someone who fell into patterns so tight you could set a clock to them. Wake up at 6:30, shower, coffee, class, work, home, repeat. Even my neighbors knew I always pulled into the driveway around 9 p.m. And honestly, I liked it that way. Predictable felt safe, until it wasn't. It was a Thursday, one of those muggy late summer evenings where the humidity sits on your skin like a heavy blanket. I'd had a long day at the college, finishing data entry for a professor who never said thank you. I remember being frustrated, sweaty, and craving nothing but iced tea and silence. I turned into Birchview Lane and immediately felt off. There was an old truck idling at the far end of the street. Not just old, ancient. Beat up white Ford from maybe the late 80s, chipped paint, mismatched door, sagging bumper. It looked like it should have died 10 years ago. And it absolutely did not belong in our neighborhood where the average car was a Honda or a Subaru. I slowed down without meaning to. The truck wasn't parked. It wasn't waiting for traffic. It was just idling at the yield sign, engine rumbling loud enough to disturb the silence. And the weirdest part? The street was empty. Everyone else's houses were dark. No one was out walking dogs or jogging like they usually did at that hour. Just me. Just that truck. My first thought was, maybe he's lost. Maybe he's checking his GPS. But the truck didn't move. And I couldn't see the driver, just the silhouette of a head sitting too still, facing my direction. A chill crawled up my spine. I pulled into my driveway like normal but didn't get out. I kept the doors locked, just sat there gripping the steering wheel and watching that truck in my rearview mirror. It didn't move for a full minute. Then slowly, too slowly, it rolled away. Almost like whoever was inside wanted me to see them leaving, wanted me to relax. I didn't relax. I waited. Another minute. Then went inside, locked the front door, locked the back door, and tried to pretend nothing was wrong. Jared wasn't home yet. He'd texted earlier that he was picking up an extra shift and wouldn't be back until later. So it was just me and my dog, Rook, a big, dopey black lab who normally barked when a leaf blew across the yard. That night, he was silent. Around 11 p.m., I was in my bedroom folding laundry while listening to some true crime podcast that always made real murder sound way too casual. That's when everything went dark. No flicker, no warning. Just snap. Pitch black. Come on, I muttered to no one. Our power rarely went out unless there was a storm. But tonight, clear sky. Not a drop of wind. Rook lifted his head from the foot of my bed but didn't bark. Great, I sighed, grabbing my phone. I called Jared. He answered on the second ring. Yeah? What's up? Where are you? I asked immediately. Leaving now. GPS says I'm like 5 minutes out. Why? Our power just went out. Whole street? That's the thing. I don't know yet. You want me to hurry? Yes, please. I'm hauling ass. Don't go outside. No shit, I said, trying to laugh but failing. When I hung up, my nerves wouldn't settle. There was something too deliberate about the timing. The truck. The darkness. My isolation. Everything felt arranged. I walked toward the living room, phone flashlight bouncing off the walls. The little diamond-shaped window in our front door always bothered me. It was small but gave a direct view of the yard if you stood on your tiptoes. I did. All the neighbors' power was still on. The streetlight in front of our house glowed bright, meaning only our house was dark. My heart hammered. That's not normal, I whispered. As I turned away from the window, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom about something totally unrelated. I answered quickly, hands shaking. Then, for no reason at all, I looked back through that window, and my stomach dropped. There was a man standing under the streetlight. He hadn't been there before. He must have appeared while I was texting, only seconds. He was maybe late 40s, tallish but slouched. Pale skin under harsh yellow light, greasy hair shoved under a ball cap, a stained gray t-shirt, baggy jeans, old brown boots. He looked like he'd crawled out from under a car and never bothered washing up. But it wasn't his clothes that scared me. It was his face. Smug, smirking, like he'd been waiting for something. Waiting for me. I froze. I didn't breathe. I didn't even blink. He didn't seem to see me, not with the house so dark. Instead, he stared at the house itself, tilting his head slightly, studying it like a puzzle he was about to solve. Then he started walking. Not fast, not cautious, just calm, deliberate steps toward my yard, like he'd done it before, like he already knew the way. The street was dead quiet. The neighborhood looked asleep. No passing cars, no dogs barking. It was just him and me. Rook didn't move, didn't growl, didn't react at all. Why wasn't he alerting? Why wasn't he sensing anything? I wanted to scream at the dog, do something. But the words stayed stuck in my throat. The man reached my mailbox, paused, glanced around once, twice, like making sure no one else was watching, then continued toward the porch. My breath shook violently. My throat felt tight. My phone slipped in my sweaty hand as I tried to dial Jared. The man was halfway across the yard. Then, headlights flooded the street. Jared's car whipped around the corner. Fast. Too fast. The man's head snapped toward the vehicle, and for the first time I saw his expression clearly. Recognition. He knew the car. He knew Jared. Or he realized Jared lived here. Either way, his eyes widened, not with fear, but with irritation, like he'd been interrupted. Then he turned sharply and bolted toward the road. Jared slammed on the brakes, nearly hitting the guy. "Hey!" Jared yelled through the car window. But the man didn't stop, didn't answer, didn't even look back. He disappeared into the darkness beyond the streetlight. Vanished. Gone. Jared ran into the house, breathless. "Oh my God, did you see that guy?" I gasped. He didn't even answer. He went straight to the utility closet, grabbed the axe we kept for chopping firewood, and stormed back outside. "Jared, don't. He could have a weapon." "I don't care," he yelled, already halfway across the yard. I stayed inside because my legs were shaking too hard to move. Jared came back a couple minutes later. "He's gone." "Gone where?" "Don't know. Dude took off into the woods." I was trembling. My voice cracked. "Jared, why didn't the dog react? Why did he look at the house like he'd been here before?" "I don't know," Jared said softly. But his face showed something he wasn't saying. Fear. Real fear. We called the police. When they arrived, they looked around with flashlights, asked basic questions, but didn't seem too concerned. "Probably some drunk," one officer said, "or a transient cutting through." "People don't just cut through yards and walk right up to the porch," I said, nearly crying. "Ma'am, nothing was damaged, no break-ins. Could have been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding. Right, sure." Then the power company sent a repair guy. He walked around the side of the house, examined the pole, and said, "Huh, that's weird." "What's weird?" I asked. "The disconnect switch tripped. These things don't flip on their own usually. Storms sometimes. But clear nights? Not common." "Could someone do it manually?" Jared asked. The repairman hesitated, then shrugged. "Hard to say." He didn't meet our eyes after that. That night, Jared and I barely slept. Rook acted strange, restless, pacing, sniffing corners like something invisible was still lingering. I didn't go anywhere alone the next day, or the next week, and definitely never at night. 3 days after the incident, I noticed scratches on the side of our house, long, shallow lines on the siding near the back door. Jared insisted they were from raccoons, but raccoons don't make deliberate patterns, and they don't scratch directly next to doorknobs. I didn't argue. I just packed faster. We moved out the following month. New place, new locks, new routines. But every now and then, I think about that man. How he walked so confidently toward my home. How he stood under that streetlight smirking. How he flipped our power off like he'd done it before. How he recognized the car. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder, how long had he been watching us, and what would have happened if Jared had been just 1 minute later? I didn't notice anything was wrong until the second day, and by then our house already felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. We lived on a quiet cul-de-sac in Hawthorne Bend, one of those suburbs where every house looks like it came out of the same catalog. Same beige siding, same neatly trimmed lawns, same porch lights that flicked on at exactly sunset. Growing up, I used to think the symmetry made things feel safer, predictable. But as I stood in our kitchen that Tuesday evening, watching my mother stir a pot of chicken noodle soup she'd already made twice that week, all I could think was how suffocating the sameness felt. My brother, Lyle, hadn't left his room since Sunday, and my parents wouldn't let me check on him. Backstory or not, that wasn't normal for us. Lyle and I grew up thick as thieves. We were the kind of siblings who fought about remote controls 1 minute and defended each other against the neighborhood bullies the next. But everything changed after his diagnosis, after the surgeries, after the second round of treatments, after the night I found him on the bathroom floor coughing up something that didn't look like it belonged in a human body. He'd been getting worse. And suddenly, 3 days behind a closed bedroom door, I cleared my throat. "Mom." She didn't turn around. She just kept stirring like the spoon was glued to her hand. "Mom," I repeated louder. "Hmm?" Her voice was thin, paper thin. "Lyle hasn't eaten. He hasn't even opened the door." She stirred harder. The soup sloshed against the pot's rim. "He's tired," she said, "and he needs his strength." That doesn't even make sense. It makes perfect sense, Levi. She turned and finally looked at me. Her eyes were puffy and raw, like she'd been crying into the stove. Your brother needs rest. The doctor told us that. No, I said. The doctor said he needed monitoring. You told me that. Remember? Her gaze flickered, just for a second. But she didn't answer. My dad walked in then, smelling like engine oil and cold air, carrying a six-pack of Coke like he always did when he pretended everything was fine. You hungry? He asked, even though he didn't wait for a response before grabbing a can for himself. God, I swear, hospital cafeterias are a scam. $10 for a grilled cheese that tasted like cardboard. Mom forced a laugh. I told you to pack something. I did, Dad said, and then I ate it in the parking lot. You can't leave me unattended with snacks. He winked, but the smile didn't touch his eyes. It never did anymore. I exhaled slowly. Dad, can we please check on Lyle? Something's wrong. His light hasn't been on since Sunday. Dad popped the Coke open with a sharp hiss. Light's off because he's sleeping. For 3 days. Boy's exhausted, Dad said. Let him rest. But, Levi, he interrupted. Drop it. There it was again. That wall. The same wall they'd been building ever since we brought Lyle home from his last hospital stay. I wasn't supposed to ask questions. I wasn't supposed to notice the way Mom washed the same dishes over and over, or how Dad sat outside in his truck with the radio on long after he got home, or how Lyle's door stayed shut like it had been welded. But I noticed. I couldn't not. I glanced down the hallway. The house smelled like soup and lemon cleaner, but beneath it was something else. Something sour. Something that didn't belong in a suburb with matching lawns. The smell was coming from his room. Dad followed my gaze and stepped in front of me. Hey, you want something to eat? Your mom made extra. I'm not hungry. You should eat anyway. I want to see Lyle. Dad's jaw tightened. Not tonight. Why not? Because I said so. That phrase hit me harder than it should have. He hadn't spoken to me like that since I was 10 and kicked a soccer ball through Mr. Thorne's window. I swallowed. Dad? No. He walked to the fridge. Heat up some of the leftover casserole from yesterday. I don't want casserole. Well, I do, he said. And your mom does. And Lyle will when he wakes up. Dad? I whispered. He's not waking up. The Coke he was holding slipped, smashing onto the floor and spraying his jeans. He didn't react. He just stared at me, eyes wide and empty, like someone had unplugged him. Don't, he said quietly. Don't talk like that. Mom's spoon clattered against the pot. The silence that followed felt like a living thing, slinking through the kitchen and wrapping around all of us. I stepped away from them, walked to the hallway, stood in front of Lyle's closed door. His name was written on the wood in black Sharpie from when we were little. We used to scribble everything. Our names, drawings, jokes. We didn't care. We got grounded for it. But we still wrote on the walls because ink felt permanent in a way we wanted to be. His name looked faded now. I put my hand on the knob. It was cold. Too cold. Levi. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. I froze. Don't open it, she said. Not now, please. Let him rest. Rest from what? I asked, not turning around. From being alive? Silence. Then Dad's voice, low and terrified. Please, son, leave it alone. There was something in his tone I'd never heard before. Something that crawled under my skin. I twisted the knob. Levi! Mom screamed. I pushed the door open, and the smell hit me like a punch to the face. Not gym socks, not sickness. Something heavier, sweet and rotten at the same time. Like fruit left in a hot car. Like something that used to be alive. The room was dark except for a sliver of streetlight creeping through the blinds. I stepped inside. The floor creaked. The world shrank. Lyle? I whispered. My eyes adjusted slowly. His bed came into view. Sheets rumpled. Body still. Too still. He was lying flat on his back, arms straight at his sides, fingers curled slightly, as if someone had gently arranged them. His skin had a strange gray tint, like he'd been carved out of stone. His mouth was slack. A smear of dried red trailed down his chin. His eyes, wide open, staring at the ceiling, not moving, not blinking, not alive. My breath died in my throat. I took one step closer, then another. "Lyle," I croaked. His chest didn't rise, didn't fall. I reached out and touched his cheek. It was cold, not hospital room cold, not fever cold, dead cold. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the laundry basket. My hand flew to my mouth. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, in my skull, everywhere. No, 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 no. I ran out of the room, slammed the door shut behind me like I could trap the truth inside. Mom stood in the hallway trembling. Dad leaned against the wall like he couldn't hold himself up. "Why?" My voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" Mom's face twisted and she pressed her hands together like she was praying. "We weren't ready," she whispered. I couldn't lose both of you at once." Dad wiped his face, smearing tears across his cheeks. "We brought him home because he wanted to be home," he said. "He didn't want more hospitals. He wanted us. But he's been dead for..." My words broke. "For how long?" Mom collapsed into Dad's arms. "2 days," she sobbed. "He passed Monday morning. I couldn't open that door. I couldn't let him go. I felt the floor sway beneath me." "You made dinner," I said. "You made jokes. You acted like everything was normal," Dad whispered. "Because if we didn't pretend, we'd fall apart." I slid down the wall until I hit the carpet. The house suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too fake. "I should have been with him," I said. "I should have stayed. I should have..." Dad knelt beside me. No, Levi. You were there. You talked to him every day. You kept him laughing even when he couldn't respond. That's not enough. You loved him," Dad said. "That's enough." Mom walked over and knelt beside us. She grabbed my hands gently, the way she used to when I was little. "We can't change what happened," she whispered, "but we can face it. Together." The streetlights outside flickered. The house creaked. The air shifted, and for the first time since Sunday, I felt the truth settle in my chest. Not soft, not gentle, but real. My brother was gone, and we were all pretending not to drown. I stood slowly. My legs shook. I need to say goodbye." Mom nodded, her chin trembling. Dad squeezed my shoulder. I opened Lyle's door again, this time slowly, like an apology. The smell didn't hit me as hard this time. The darkness felt softer. I walked to the bed and sat beside him. His eyes were still open, staring at a ceiling he'd never see again. I reached over and gently closed them. "There," I whispered. "Rest." My throat tightened so hard I could barely breathe. "I'm sorry I didn't check sooner," I said. "I'm sorry I didn't stay longer that night. I'm sorry I told you stupid stories when you were sick. I'm sorry for every fight we ever had." The words spilled out like water from a cracked glass. I didn't know how long I sat there. Eventually, Mom and Dad came in too. We sat around Lyle, not talking, not pretending, just being. When I finally stood up, my knees ached and my chest felt scraped hollow. Mom wrapped her arms around me. Dad rested his hand on my back. We walked out together, and for the first time in days, we closed the door gently, not to hide him, but to let him go. I never thought much about the way doors sound when they close, not until that year. Back in 2016, when I was 17 and freshly enrolled in my first semester at a small suburban film school outside St. Clair, Illinois, the click of a deadbolt was just background noise. I never imagined a day would come when the sound of a lock, working or failing, would decide whether I lived or died. I grew up in a quiet household in rural Indiana. Overly sheltered, kind of awkward, The type who double-checks everything because my brain refuses to rest. My mom always told me, "Jules, you're too careful for your own good." But that was just me. I'd recheck the stove 3 times, make sure the faucet wasn't dripping, make sure the doors were locked before sleeping. Maybe it was OCD. Maybe it was anxiety. Maybe it was just me being me. When I got into the film program at St. Clair Arts College, it felt like freedom. My first apartment, if you could call a tiny 230 square foot shoebox an apartment, was in a student building called Ridgeway Court, a beige 2-story complex in a calm suburban neighborhood filled with lawns that all looked the same and mailboxes leaned the same way. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. A single hallway, a tiny kitchenette, a single window that looked out onto the alley behind the building, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. But the location was great, and everyone said the neighborhood was the safest side of St. Clair. Nothing ever happened there. People left their bikes unlocked. Students walked at night with headphones in. The most exciting crime was someone stealing a pumpkin off a porch during Halloween. It helped that Ridgeway Court had what the landlord proudly called triple-layered security. A keypad gate outside, a key fob door after that, and then your unit door with 3 locks. I used all 3. Every time. Well, almost every time. My neighbors were mostly students too. The guy across the hall was a senior named Brennan, a music major always running late and always holding a to-go coffee. Downstairs lived Tessa, a quiet grad student who smelled like lavender and wrote poetry in the courtyard, and a middle-aged caretaker named Roy, who lived on the property and always wore the same Chicago Bears hoodie no matter the weather. I felt safe there, safe in a way I hadn't felt since childhood. And because I felt safe, I ignored the one thing that should have never been ignored. The lock. It was mid-September, a Thursday morning. I remember because I had intro to cinematography at 9 a.m., and I was already running behind. I locked my door as usual, twisted the key, heard the reassuring click, and then the key wouldn't come out. "Come on," I muttered, pulling harder. It didn't budge. I tried wiggling it, twisting it, jiggling it. I even braced my foot against the wall for leverage, looking like a complete idiot. Nothing. My heart rate spiked because things like this triggered my anxiety more than big dramatic events ever did. A jammed key? That's the kind of thing that ruins my whole day. I hurried down to find Roy, but he wasn't in his office. His radio crackled on the desk, the smell of burnt coffee in the air, but no caretaker. "Seriously?" I groaned. The clock on my phone said 8:51. I didn't have time to wait. So stupidly, I left the key in the lock, pulled off the keychain so it wouldn't be obvious, and went to class. When I returned a few hours later, Roy was back, standing outside his office chewing on sunflower seeds. "Oh hey, Jules. You left your key in your door, I heard," he said, walking with me to my unit. "Yeah, it wouldn't come out. It's like welded in there." He tried. For 15 minutes he tried, and then, magically, it slipped out like nothing was wrong. "The cylinder's damaged," he said. "Not broken, just touchy. You can still lock it, but maybe stick to one lock, not all 3. Is that safe?" "It's Ridgeway Court," he laughed. "This place is safer than the damn police station." I shouldn't have listened. God, I shouldn't have listened. But I nodded and went inside, locking it once instead of 3 times. And then I lived my life as usual, totally unaware that someone else had already noticed that lock before I ever did. By November, the air turned sharp, cold enough that your breath looked like smoke. Students wore beanies and scarves. People put up Christmas lights early because suburban folks do that. I had fallen into my routine. Class, editing projects, messing around on my laptop, long calls with my older sister Hannah, who always tried to convince me to transfer somewhere closer to home. It was a Friday night around 11 p.m. The air smelled like someone burning leaves. A party was happening somewhere down the block, bass thumping through the distance. I had trash piling up, so I decided to take it out before showering and heading to a small get-together with classmates. I called Hannah while tying up the trash bag. "You sound tired," she said. "I'm always tired," I laughed. "College is basically choosing which assignment you're gonna half-ass. Don't stay out too late, and lock your door, all 3 locks." "Relax, Mom Jr.," I joked, balancing my phone between my shoulder and ear. "I'm taking out the trash and then showering, I'll be fine." I walked out, locked my door with the one lock I'd been using, and took the trash down to the dumpster beside the parking lot. The air was quiet. No one around. A raccoon skittered by and made me jump. "Jesus, okay, nope, I'm done," I muttered into the phone. "You okay?" Hannah laughed. "Yeah, just almost died of raccoon heart attack." I hung up as I reached my door again, key in hand. I clicked it into the lock and the door swung open before I even turned the key. Unlocked. My stomach dropped. No. No. I knew I locked it. I knew the sound. I knew the feel. I double-checked things obsessively. I froze for a whole 3 seconds. Then stupidly I stepped inside. I locked the door behind me instantly, all 3 locks, and turned around. My apartment was silent. Almost too silent. The overhead light hummed weakly. My bed was unmade. My backpack was where I left it. Nothing looked disturbed. But the bathroom door, just left of the entrance, was cracked open. And behind that crack, in the reflection of the bathroom mirror, I saw a movement. A shape. A man in my shower. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hoodie, facing away from me. For a split second, my brain refused to process it. You know when your heart skips and your body tries to pretend what you're seeing isn't real? I whispered, "Oh my God." The tile floor creaked as I stepped back. I grabbed the lock again, twisting it desperately. "Open, open, open!" The damaged lock jammed. I could hear him breathing now. Slow. Heavy. Like he'd been waiting. "Come on, come on, come on," I whispered, my fingers slipping with sweat. Then, the shower curtain rustled. He turned. I didn't wait to see his face. I ran to the window, shoved it open so hard it slammed the frame, and climbed out. Except I forgot one tiny stupid detail. I lived on the 2nd floor. The ground wasn't grass. It was solid pavement. The second I landed, pain shot through both my ankles. I collapsed onto my hands and knees, gasping. Oh God, keep moving," I told myself, dragging my body forward. I half ran, half limped toward the edge of the property, tears blurring my vision. When I looked back, he was leaning out my window, watching me, not climbing out, just watching. Our eyes met for less than a second, but it felt like he looked straight through me. I kept going, stumbling into a line of bushes behind the laundromat 2 buildings away. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped my phone as I dialed 911. I'd barely finished explaining when I heard the sirens. St. Clair PD was only 5 minutes away. I limped out of the bushes toward the street, waving my arms. 2 officers, one named Officer Lindale, the other Officer Hart, helped me hobble back toward the building. My door was still locked from the inside when they arrived. "Step back, ma'am," Officer Hart said gently. He kicked the door in with one blow. And there he was, sitting calmly on my couch, like he lived there, like he belonged there. A kitchen knife in his hands. He looked at me with this strange expression, disappointment mixed with confusion, like he genuinely thought I was supposed to come back. "Hands where we can see them," Lindale shouted. The man didn't resist. He slowly placed the knife down and lay face first on the floor, like he'd been rehearsing it. The cops spent 3 hours with me. 3 hours of explaining things that made my skin crawl. He'd been watching me. More than once. They found him on security footage loitering around the alley behind Ridgeway Court. Sometimes at night, sometimes during the day. Always alone, always watching the building. But the worst thing? He overheard your phone call, Officer Hart told me. "What phone call?" "You mentioned to someone you were taking out the trash and then showering." My stomach twisted. He used that information. He moved when you moved. He timed it. I swallowed hard. But how'd he get in? He tailgated another resident through the gate. Happened earlier tonight on camera. Then he picked your lock. He came prepared. My throat felt tight. Why my unit? Why me? Officer Lindale cleared his throat uncomfortably. He told us he recognized you. From where? Your campus, St. Clair Arts. He said he's seen you there multiple times. Followed you home a few nights ago, but didn't get the opportunity to approach. The world spun around me. And the phone? I asked quietly. You changed your phone recently, right? Left the old one on the table? Yes. He assumed you didn't have a working phone on you when you took the trash out. He thought you'd come back. He thought you couldn't call for help. My blood ran cold. He waited, Lindale said softly. For you. They took him away in cuffs. They took photos of everything. They took the knife, dusted prints, filled out paperwork. I spent that night in the hospital for my ankles. 2 sprains, one worse than the other. I never slept in Ridgeway Court again. Within a week, they installed new security measures. Resident ID scans. Cameras inside every hallway. New locks. New codes. New rules. My neighbors whispered about it for months. Did you hear what happened to that freshman girl? Someone broke in Ridgeway Court? No way. Thought this area was safe. It felt like I had broken the illusion of safety for the whole street. I moved out by December, transferred apartments. Never saw the man again except in court, where he stared at the table the entire time. But I'll never forget the feeling of seeing a stranger standing inside a space that was supposed to be mine. A place I thought was untouchable. A place I trusted. I still double-check locks, triple-check them, sometimes 4 times. And every time a door clicks closed, every time a lock sticks even a little bit, I feel my pulse spike. Because now I know, you don't understand how breakable safety is until someone else breaks it for you. I was 16 the summer everything happened, and honestly, I still think about that night whenever I see a bus slow down after sunset. I wasn't a dumb kid, just bored out of my mind, stuck in a tiny, quiet suburban town called Brookdale Heights, the kind of place where the biggest excitement was when the grocery store installed self-checkout. My older cousins, Lena and Jonas, lived in Ridgehaven, a much more lively town about an hour away, and every school break I'd beg to stay with them. They were both in their 20s, worked long hours, and didn't mind me hanging around because I kept myself entertained. Ridgehaven had malls, diners, thrift shops, actual things to do. In my hometown, entertainment meant counting how many neighborhood cats crossed the street in an hour. So that summer, I packed a backpack, hopped into Jonas's beat-up Chevy, and spent 3 weeks in Ridgehaven. They both worked double shifts for an HVAC company, meaning I had the entire daytime to wander. They trusted me. And I, being 16 and way too confident in myself, trusted absolutely everyone and everything. Ridgehaven had a local transit system called The Loop, small shuttle buses that ran through residential areas and connected at a central station. The buses were painted bright teal and white, half the size of normal buses, and free. Free was good, because teenage me had only $26 for spending money. I'd been riding the Loop for a few days with no problems. Most days I'd go from their townhouse in Maple Terrace to the mall 2 towns over. The first bus would drop me at the station, and the second one took me the rest of the way. Easy stuff. But on the night I'll never forget, I learned how quickly easy stuff can turn into you almost didn't make it home. That day started completely normal. I woke up late, like always, grabbed leftover toaster waffles, watched dumb TV, and waited for Jonas to leave for work. Lena left at 6 every morning, but Jonas left at 10. When he finally rushed out, yelling something about forgetting a tool bag, I grabbed my backpack and jogged to the stop 3 blocks away. I didn't know then, but that stupid routine, same time, same day, same bus, might have been the reason someone noticed me. When the Loop pulled up, the driver gave me a nod. "Afternoon," he said. "Hey, I replied, climbing in. I didn't think anything of him. He was just a guy in a Navy uniform, stocky, maybe late 40s, with a heavy beard and tired eyes. He barely glanced my way while I found a seat. The day went totally fine. I reached the mall, bought a cheap pair of sunglasses, ate greasy pizza, wandered the bookstore until my feet hurt. By the time I left, it was evening. The Arizona-ish sun was low and orange, not quite dark, but getting there. I didn't like being out alone at night, but I figured I had plenty of time to catch both buses. At the first stop, everything went smooth. The shuttle back to the central station came fast. I found a window seat and the ride was quiet. People got on, people got off. Normal. At the station, I stepped off and checked the posted map. I knew which bus I needed, Route 12, but I always double-checked. The station was tiny. 3 benches, 2 dim lamps, and a couple vending machines that only worked when they felt like it. I was squinting at the map when someone spoke next to me. "You trying to find your way home or what?" I turned. A guy around my age stood there, maybe 17 or 18, tall, skinny, wearing a snapback and beat-up Vans. Friendly enough smile. Yeah, I said. I always forget which street connects where." "That one," he said, pointing. "Route 12. It'll swing back around Maple Terrace." "Thanks." "No problem." He grinned. "You new around here?" "Just staying with my cousins." "Oh, cool. Ridge Haven's chill. Little weird sometimes, but cool." We talked casually for a few minutes, nothing special. Stuff like, "So what school you go to?" "Back home? Riverside High." "Never heard of it, but sounds boring." "It is." Normal small talk. He seemed harmless, just a bored local kid waiting for a bus. When Route 12 pulled up, I got on. He got on too. I didn't think that was strange. Lots of people rode that route. He sat a couple rows ahead, and we talked a bit more until he got off about 10 minutes later. "Nice talking," he said, hopping down. "Stay safe." "Yeah, you too." And then it was just me, a couple other passengers, and the driver. I settled into my seat, put my headphones in, and zoned out watching houses blur by as dusk got darker and darker. Maybe 10 minutes later I noticed something off. Nothing looked familiar. Like, nothing. Not the street names, not the houses, not the layout. Ridge Haven wasn't huge. After 3 weeks of riding around, I should have recognized something. A weird, heavy feeling settled in my stomach. I pulled out one of the little paper maps they kept in the slot. My phone was only at 3%, which made me nervous. I tried to match the route lines with landmarks, but the further we went, the less things made sense. That's when I realized I was on the wrong bus. Route 12 had branched, and I'd gotten on the one going in the opposite direction, deep into a part of Ridge Haven I'd never been to. I swallowed hard. It wasn't the end of the world. The loop buses made full circuits. If I stayed on long enough, I'd end up back at the station. I just needed to be patient. But the sky was almost fully dark now. Streetlights flicked on, the roads were emptier, houses more spaced apart, and my phone was down to 1%. Great. I took a deep breath and tried not to panic. The bus emptied out, stop by stop, until it was just me and the driver left. The road grew quieter. The neighborhoods looked older, rougher. Chain-link fences, patchy yards, houses without porch lights. We turned down a long, shadowed street I definitely didn't recognize. And then the driver called out from the front, "You lost back there?" His voice startled me. I froze, map in hand. Yeah, I said. "I think I got on the wrong line." "That right?" He didn't sound annoyed, more like curious, uncomfortably curious. I forced a polite smile even though he couldn't see it. "Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to loop back." He didn't reply. Instead, he slowed the bus, and then he pulled over on a completely dark, empty street. My heart kicked up a notch. Buses stopped at marked stops, not random stretches of road. But maybe he was ahead of schedule. Drivers sometimes waited. I tried to believe that, until I heard his seat creak, and his footsteps. And then he was walking toward me. He was a big guy, taller than I remembered, broad shoulders, heavy arms. His uniform shirt looked too tight across his chest. He grabbed one of the spare maps from the holder and sat down right next to me. Not across the aisle, not a row ahead, right beside me. He smiled, but it wasn't comforting. It was slow, like he was thinking ahead of his words. "Show me where you were trying to go," he said. I swallowed. "It's okay, I think I figured it out." "Nah, come on." He nudged the map. "Let me see." I didn't want to be rude. My cousins always told me, don't set people off, don't escalate, just stay calm. So I handed him the map. He leaned in close, too close. I could smell his breath, coffee and something stale. "So," he said, "you go to any of the local schools?" "No, I'm visiting." "From where?" "Brookdale." He nodded, still staring at the map. "That near the border?" No." He tapped the paper. "You said you're 16? My pulse jumped. I hadn't told him that. "How?" I started. "You look young," he said. "Real young." My hands felt cold. He kept talking. Random questions. Rapid fire. "You got family expecting you? You staying alone? Your people know where you are? You got a boyfriend? You meet anybody at the station?" My throat tightened. His last question was the one that made my eyes burn. "Anyone expecting you tonight?" Something about the way he asked made every part of me scream danger. I whispered, "Yeah, my cousin. She's waiting." He finally leaned back slightly, breathing slow through his nose. Then he stood. For 1 second, I thought he was going back to the driver's seat. Instead, he stepped to the front. He reached up, and he shut the doors. Both of them. A second later, he cut the lights. The entire bus went pitch black except for faint orange glow from a faraway street lamp. I froze. I could barely breathe. I saw his silhouette turn around, and he walked back toward me. Slowly, deliberately. He sat down beside me again, closer this time. I felt the seat sink under his weight. "You shouldn't ride alone this late," he said quietly. "Whole lot of weirdos out here." My brain screamed, "Run." I didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't plan. As soon as he shifted slightly, just a tiny movement, I shot up from the seat and bolted down the aisle. He yelled something behind me, deep, angry, but adrenaline drowned out the words. I slammed into the doors with my shoulder. Nothing happened. I shoved them. Still nothing. Panicking, I jammed my fingers into the rubber seam and pushed with everything I had. The door gave an inch, then another. I wedged my foot in, shoved harder, and suddenly, it popped open. I stumbled out, nearly falling onto the asphalt, and sprinted. My backpack swung wildly. My chest burned. I didn't look behind me, but I heard him. "Hey!" I kept running. When I finally dared glance back, he was in the driver's seat again. The headlights flashed on. The engine roared. The bus lurched forward. For one horrifying moment, I thought he was going to swing the bus around and cut me off. But instead, he sped past me and disappeared around a corner way too fast for a bus that size. I didn't stop running until I saw lights. A phone store, Cell Planet. I burst inside, gasping, shaking, tears streaming down my face. A guy behind the counter jumped up. "Whoa, whoa, hey, you okay?" "My phone's dead, please. Do you have a charger, please?" I could barely get the words out. He immediately grabbed one and plugged my phone in. I don't know if he charged me for it, I don't think he did. I called Jonas the second my phone turned on, hands trembling. He picked up on the first ring. "Where the hell are you? We've been trying to reach you," I sobbed. I'm in Ridgehaven West. I got on the wrong bus. I think the driver tried something. Please come get me." "Text me the address," he said, voice suddenly sharp. "Stay inside. I'm coming now." When he arrived, he practically lifted me into the car. I told him everything on the drive home, every detail, every question, every moment on that dark street. He was furious. "I'm calling the loop first thing in the morning," he said. "That driver's done. I swear to God." I never heard what happened after that. Maybe the company fired him, maybe they didn't. Maybe he'd done this before. Maybe I wasn't the first girl he tried isolating on a dark route. But I know one thing. I wasn't imagining the danger. And if I hadn't run when I did, I might not be here to tell the story. I thought I was just a naive teenager. I thought trusting people made life easier. But that night taught me something I never forgot. Some people ask questions not because they care, but because they're planning something. And you never, ever sit alone on a dark bus with someone planning something. I always believed I had a decent read on people. My mom used to joke that I was too aware for my own good, the kind of kid who noticed every car parked half a block too long, every stranger who seemed a little too interested in where we lived. I grew up in quiet neighborhoods, places where the loudest thing after 10 p.m. was usually someone's old AC unit kicking on. By the time my girlfriend and I decided to move into our new place, I thought I'd left those early instincts behind. We'd found the bottom floor of a split ranch on a sleepy street in a small suburban town outside Providence. Nothing fancy, but it had a little yard, a small cement driveway, and enough privacy to feel like our first real home. Her name was Lauren, and she chose this place mostly because she loved the way the morning light hit the bedroom window. I cared because rent wasn't obscene, and the neighbors looked like the type who kept their trash bins lined up perfectly. You know, those neighborhoods that feel safe just because they're so normal. The first couple of months went smooth. We unpacked slowly, argued about kitchen shelves, met the upstairs neighbor, a retired woman named Miss Rainey, who overwatered her plants and talked like she grew up in an older America. Everything about the street felt predictable, harmless, until it didn't. It was just after 1 a.m. My shift ran late, and I stepped outside to smoke before bed. It was cold enough that my breath floated in front of me. My lighter clicked a few times before catching. That's when I saw it, a black Dodge Charger idling at the edge of my driveway, engine running, headlights on, blocking me in like it was waiting for something to happen. For a second, I thought I was just tired. People pulled over all the time to text or take a call. Cars stalled, cars overheated, cars needed directions. But something about the way this car was positioned, directly aligned with my driveway, looked intentional. I took a drag. The driver didn't move. The car didn't inch forward or backward. It just sat there, lights cutting across the pavement toward me. "All right, man," I muttered to myself, backing toward the door. "You do you." I went inside. Didn't think too hard about it. Things happen. But the image stuck with me longer than I expected. 2 nights later, around 2 a.m., I stepped out to toss the garbage. Same spot, same angle, same damn black Charger, engine on, lights on, driver invisible behind the tinted windshield. A cold prickle shot down my spine, the kind that comes when your body senses something before your brain does. "What the hell?" I whispered. This time I didn't linger. I eased the garbage lid down, walked back toward the house, and watched from the screen door. The car stayed another 20 seconds, just long enough to make sure I had seen it, before it rolled off the curb and drifted down the block like nothing happened. Inside, Lauren was half asleep on the couch watching some crime documentary. "You good?" she asked when she saw my face. There was a car outside again, same one from the other night. She sat up. Doing what? Just sitting, blocking the driveway. She frowned but tried to shrug it off. "People are weird," she said, grabbing a blanket. "Maybe someone's picking someone up." "Twice? Same time? Same exact spot?" She didn't have an answer. Neither did I, but something in my chest felt tight. Tonight I got home just after 1 a.m. I went straight to our room where Lauren was scrolling her phone. We were talking about her friend drama when brakes squeaked outside, just barely loud enough to hear through the window. I froze. Did you hear that? Hear what? I went to the blinds and parted them just enough to peek outside. There it was again. The Charger. Parked the exact same way. Except this time I knew he saw me. Because the second I lifted the blinds, the engine revved and the car glided away fast. Too fast for someone who just happened to stop there. Lauren's face tightened. Is it really the same car? Yes. Why would he keep coming here? I didn't have an answer, but my gut felt like it was twisting. That's when I called the cops for the first time. The dispatcher sounded half asleep, repeating the same line. Unless there's a crime being committed, we can't do much. But if the vehicle returns, call us immediately. I hung up feeling stupid. Like I was overreacting. Like maybe I was imagining patterns where there weren't any. But deep down, I knew this wasn't normal. The next morning, I went upstairs and knocked on Ms. Rainey's door. Her son, Theo, mid-20s, always wearing some form of athletic shorts, opened it. "What's up, man?" he asked. "You guys have a camera out front, right? Facing the street?" "Yeah. Why?" I explained everything quickly. He gave a low whistle. "That's creepy as hell. Let me pull it up." He scrolled through the saved clips, finally found something from last night. There. He rotated the screen toward me. A grainy video showed my driveway. A black shiny Charger pulled up, lights glowing, engine running, but the camera angle made the front plate unreadable. "Can you scroll back further?" I asked. "I'll go through everything I got," he said. "Might take a bit, but I'll text you." Part of me hoped he wouldn't find anything, but another part hoped he would, because at least then I'd know I wasn't losing it. Fast forward to tonight. Lauren decided to grab a late dinner with her friends. She texted me at 12:42 a.m. "Leaving now. Be there in 10. I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed again, this time a call. "Hey," I answered, toothpaste still in my mouth. Her voice was shaking. "He's here." I dropped the toothbrush. "Where?" He was coming up the block as I turned in. Slow, like checking every house. "What did you do?" I turned around. I followed him. "You what?" He kept speeding up every time I got close. I tried to get the plate, but it's tinted or covered. I couldn't see anything. "Jesus Christ, Lauren, don't follow people like that. That's dangerous." "I know," she snapped, voice cracking. "But I needed to know if he was really watching us or if we're just paranoid." "Did you call the cops?" "Yeah. They said they'd send someone to sweep the area." I ran my hand down my face. "You come home right now. Do not stop anywhere. Do not slow down." She arrived a few minutes later, breathless, spooked, angry at herself and at the situation. "He knew I was following him," she said. "He took off like he didn't want me to see where he was going." "Please don't ever do that again," I said, pulling her close. "I won't," she whispered. "I promise." But even as she said it, her eyes darted toward the window, like she felt someone looking back. Something changed after that. The car didn't come back for several nights, but that didn't make things better. It made the silence feel louder. Every time a vehicle slowed on our block, I perked up. Every time headlights swept across the living room, Lauren flinched. Our quiet suburban street suddenly felt foreign. One night around 3 a.m., the motion light outside clicked on. No car, no raccoon, nothing. Just empty yard. Another night, I swore I heard footsteps near the driveway. Not on the pavement, on the grass. Soft, deliberate. When I looked, there was nothing. Theo came downstairs 2 days later with a USB stick. "Man, you need to see this," he said quietly. He plugged it into my TV and played a clip from 4 nights earlier, before I even realized the car was coming that often. The camera showed the Charger rolling slowly past our house. Again, and again, and again. 4 passes in 1 hour. No headlights off, no attempt to park legally, just circling. "What the hell?" I whispered. "Dude," Theo said, "that's not random." "Does it ever stop anywhere else?" Nope. Always right here. Always late. Lauren wrapped her arms around herself. I hate this, she said softly. It was last night, or technically early morning, around 1:15 a.m. Lauren was already asleep. I couldn't. I kept replaying every moment, every appearance of that car, every unanswered question. So I sat in the living room with the lights off, staring out the thin crack between the curtains. And right on schedule, a pair of headlights glowed at the end of the block. My pulse spiked. I knew the pattern now. I knew the shape of those lights. The Charger slowed, rolled closer, closer, and finally stopped in front of my driveway, perfectly centered. This time I didn't move, didn't open the curtains, didn't let him know I was watching. The engine hummed smoothly. Then the driver's side door opened. My throat tightened. A tall silhouette stepped out, hood up, hands in pockets. He walked toward the sidewalk, paused, and leaned forward slightly like he was listening. Then he stepped onto my driveway. One step, another, heading straight toward my window. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man outside my house, I whispered. He's been coming for nights. He just got out of his car. Please, send someone. Stay inside. Lock all doors. Units are on the way. I peeked again. He was less than 10 feet from the window. He turned his head slowly, scanning the house like he was mapping it out. Then, Lauren's phone alarm went off in the bedroom. A shrill, sudden beep. The man froze, stared directly at the house. Then he sprinted back to his car, jumped in, and tore off so fast the tires screeched. Cops arrived 10 minutes later. Too late, of course. They took statements, looked around, made the typical promises. We'll patrol more often. Call if he comes back. We'll try to run cameras in the area. But even they looked uneasy. One officer pulled me aside. Listen, he said quietly. Charger with tinted plates at 1 a.m. That's usually not someone doing anything good. Like what? I asked. He didn't answer. I didn't sleep. Lauren didn't either. At 4:18 a.m., there was a small knock on the front door. Not loud, just 2 light taps. We froze. Then a voice. Hey, your upstairs neighbor told me to drop this off. You guys left this outside the trash bin. It was Theo's voice. I opened the door, only a crack. You good? He asked. No, I whispered. He handed me a sealed envelope. What's this? Found it on my windshield. He swallowed. It's for you. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single piece of paper. No handwriting, no threats. Just a printed message. You see me? I see you. Keep watching. My stomach dropped. Theo whispered, Man, you need to move. Lauren leaned against the doorway behind me, covering her mouth in fear. I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, but because the street outside felt too quiet, too still, like someone was waiting for us to react. And in the reflection of the window pane, I swore I saw headlights at the far end of the block, just sitting there in the darkness, engine humming so softly I almost missed it. Watching. Always watching. I didn't realize it back then, but that summer was the turning point in my life. The moment when I first understood how quietly dangerous people can be. Not loud, not dramatic, not movie villain dangerous, but something softer, creepier, simmering right beneath the surface of a perfectly ordinary suburban neighborhood. We had moved to Redwood Hollow, a quiet neighborhood in a medium-sized college town that felt like every American suburb you've ever seen. Quiet streets, old oak trees leaning over sidewalks, kids riding scooters after dinner, the smell of someone grilling burgers 3 doors down. The kind of place where my mom, who was normally paranoid about everything, finally felt safe enough to let me walk around alone. I was 13, maybe 14, and homeschooled. And when I say homeschooled, I don't mean the Pinterest kind with schedules and projects and weekly co-ops. I mean the kind where a single mother of 3 pulled you out of public school because things got too chaotic and then never quite figured out how to replace it with anything. So I spent most days wandering. The comic shop a few blocks over, the weird little thrift store behind the laundromat, the candy aisle at the tiny corner market where the cashier never looked up from her phone. I'd walk loops around the neighborhood with my headphones blasting whatever music I could find online for free, pretending I was in some music video. Our house sat on a corner lot with a ravine behind us and only one immediate neighbor, the Burrows family, in a small blue house with white shutters and a perfectly rectangular lawn. And at first they seemed normal, but that didn't last. The mom, Ellen Burrows, was small, thin, and moved like her body was permanently clenched. Her hair was cut in a short, curled bob, the kind you imagine on women in old sitcoms, and she smiled in a way that felt like she had rehearsed it. Always too wide, always too long, always slightly wrong. She had 3 kids. A son, Rowan, around 23, a college student who rarely left the house except to drive to campus. Another son, Jace, 17, the stereotypical computer chair gremlin who only ever wore video game graphic tees and jeans that never seemed to fit. And a daughter, Leora, who, based on looks alone, we all assumed was around 16. Short black skirts, ripped tights, lace chokers, bad dye jobs, heavy eyeliner. Like she ordered all her clothes from the clearance section of a Hot Topic in 2007. They were friendly enough at first. Rowan nodded politely when he grabbed the mail. Jace grunted if you said hi. Leora waved sometimes, her bracelets clinking. And Ellen was, well, she was always cheerful. Creepy cheerful. I didn't understand how unsettling it was until much later. Because our kitchen faced theirs across a small patch of grass separated by a waist-high wooden fence, I could hear almost everything. Summer meant I was home alone a lot. Mom working double shifts, siblings at friends' houses or camps. And almost every day, like clockwork, I'd be on the couch watching TV and suddenly, what did I tell you about leaving dishes in the sink? Ellen's voice could cut through drywall. Then, don't you roll your eyes at me, Leora. You think you're so smart. Or, Rowan, you are useless, you know that? An absolute waste of a degree. Or, Jace, stop ignoring me. Do you want your computer taken apart again? She attacked them like it was her full-time job, weight-shaming Leora, calling Rowan a failure, humiliating Jace over every little thing. It wasn't fighting. It wasn't two-sided. It was just her, unloading. One afternoon I told my mom about it, expecting her to say I was exaggerating. Instead, she sighed. Ellen's odd, she said carefully. We've had coffee a couple times and something's off. She keeps saying she doesn't trust her kids to be alone anywhere. Doesn't trust the world. Says she walks them everywhere. What do you mean everywhere? My mom gave me a look. She walks her grown son to his college classroom door. I blinked. That's why. She says the world's gotten too dangerous. I laughed then. Mom didn't. She said it totally normal too, like it was cute. I could tell even she was unnerved. But she shrugged it off, because what else could we do? Neighborhood weirdos happen. Except this wasn't just weird. It was something else. I just didn't see it yet. As the days passed, things escalated. I noticed the kids were literally never outside without their mother. Not even to check the mail. Not even to take trash to the bin 3 feet from their back door. One day, I watched Leora open the front door, leash in hand, letting their little terrier tug excitedly into the yard. Then Ellen burst onto the porch like a drill sergeant. What do you think you're doing? I'm just letting him peek. Without me? It's literally 10 feet. Do you want to be kidnapped? Then she marched her daughter inside like she was 6. Another day, Rowan, 23 years old, walked to his car. Ellen followed behind him, barking instructions. Text me when you get to campus, and when you get to class, and when... Mom, he muttered through clenched teeth. Please stop. Don't talk back to me. It was constant. Control, shame, paranoia. But in my stupid teenage brain, I still thought they were quirky, not dangerous. That changed fast. It started small. A ring at 3 p.m., a ring at 12 p.m., a ring at 8 p.m. No one there. At first, we assumed it was college kids. There were some frat guys down the street who always screamed nasty stuff at me when they drove by. But it kept happening. Then one night, cops knocked on our door saying someone had filed a noise complaint against us. For a night, we'd been silently watching TV. Then our garage sale flyers kept getting ripped down, but only ours, and only on our block. My mom brushed it off. "We're moving soon anyway," she said. "Just ignore it." I did. Until the day animal control arrived. It was a weekday. Hot, hazy, boring. Mom was working late. My siblings were out. I was alone watching TV. Our dog tethered safely to a tree in our front yard so she could run around. Then I heard a truck pull up, a heavy one, and my dog started barking like crazy. I looked out. An animal control officer was trying to loop one of those pole neck restraints around her. I ran outside, heart slamming. Hey, what are you doing? She's on our property." The officer, a tall woman with her hair in a gray ponytail, said, "We got an anonymous call. They said this dog's been outside for days without food or water." "What? She's been out here maybe 30 minutes. The officer didn't look convinced, but she wasn't aggressive about it either. I called Mom and she rushed home. And in a weird twist of fate, Mom and the officer recognized each other. Old high school friends. They talked. The officer lowered her voice. "I can't give you the caller's exact address," she said, "but I can tell you it came from right on this street." And she gestured vaguely toward the Burrows house. My mom froze. "But they're friendly with us," she said slowly. The officer shrugged. "Just telling you what I can." We were stunned. Why would neighbors who talk to us like friends do something like that? Mom said, "Let's not stir anything up. We're leaving soon either way." But something was happening behind the scenes, and we didn't know how bad it was yet. The day everything clicked into place, I was bored out of my mind. We were maybe a week away from moving. I found an old note from Leora with her DeviantArt username scribbled on it. She'd given it to me once, thinking I'd like her artwork. Curiosity got the better of me, so I typed it in. It was full of messy goth sketches, Slipknot fan art, weird furry drawings, angsty quotes. Then I clicked the link to her live journal, and there it was, a post titled, "The Psychos Next Door." My heart did a weird flip. I clicked, and I swear my vision tunneled. It was a long, furious rant about how we had called animal control on her dogs. She claimed that the officer told her our exact address. She lied. The officer never said that. She called us every name imaginable. She described each of us physically, every detail. And then, I swear to God, I want them all dead. If anything happens to my babies again, I'm done playing nice. Comment after comment encouraged her to get revenge. Ring their doorbell at 3 a.m. Call the cops on them for anything. Make their life hell. Steal their dog. Poison their dog. Break into their house and scare them. Follow them. Make them regret messing with you. My stomach dropped. I read the post again, then again, then again, trying to make sense of it. We hadn't done anything. We hadn't called anyone. The whole situation was made up. But she believed it. She believed it enough to hate us. Enough to talk about hurting us. Enough to post about us publicly. Enough to describe what we looked like. And suddenly all the weirdness, the ripped flyers, the false noise complaint, the doorbell ringing, it all made sense. Mom read it. Her face lost all color. She immediately called the animal control friend again, who confirmed, "We haven't had any other calls on your street in years. Just the one for your dog." Meaning, Leora had lied. Her mom had lied. Someone in that house had made everything up, and then turned it into a campaign against us. We were leaving in 5 days. Mom decided, we don't confront them. We don't talk to them. We just leave. And that's exactly what we did. But I never stopped thinking about it. Because if someone is unstable enough to create an entire fantasy in their head, to invent wrongs that never happened, to convince themselves we had attacked them, to imagine us as villains, to escalate to stalking, harassment, threats. What else could they have done? What were they capable of if we had stayed? I still don't know, and I still don't want to.